Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this. And welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, how are you doing today?
I am great. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving?
I am well. I am 10 pounds heavier easily. No, it was really good. How was yours?
It was good. It was good. We celebrated in Jersey as we had the podcast last week where I was in
Mhm.
Jersey.
When did you get back home?
Saturday. So I
Okay.
got back on Saturday. Yeah. So it's about like, a 6-hour drive, but Jersey had a little bit of like snow and sleet. So it's starting to get to that weather around here. So like it was
Mhm.
snowing in Pittsburgh a little bit on Saturday when we got in too.
Okay.
Um, so I'm excited. I know it doesn't do that in Atlanta. So I'm
It sure
excited.
doesn't. But when it does, the whole state shuts down because
Yeah.
we do not have the resources or infrastructure for that kind of weather. And the whole nation knows about it because Atlanta stops. The Georgia
Yeah.
stops. All of it
Yeah, it's
ceases.
gonna be interesting to see because we're already having so many supply chain issues, right? So, I mean, the
Mhm.
East Coast is one of the more, I would say one of the riskier supply chains right now in the next few months. Once we get into snow, once we get into natural disasters, whatever the case may be, it's always
Yeah.
the East Coast is like the bottleneck there. But I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see with the slowdown, hopefully from Chinese New Year early next year. I don't think we'll see any relief this year. So.
No, probably not. And the one thing that I can say, I don't know about the rest of the East Coast, but about Georgia specifically, at least whenever we do get any kind of inclement weather and we do shut down, it's at least not for a very long time unless power goes out. Getting power restored can take a hot minute. Like 2
Mm.
or 3 years ago, I don't remember how long ago it was, a large portion of the North Metro Atlanta area was out of power for like a week. So folks were just like crashing out at other people's houses and like just putting their groceries in coolers and doing anything they could. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that doesn't happen this year because, like you said, everything else is enough of a mess.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is really it's going to be a good segue into our conversation today, but it's an opportunity, right, for those that do have inventory and have a solid supply chain to take over the sales opportunities across the board. And having, I think,
Mhm.
a solid listing, it makes a difference not so much to my personal shopping, but to when we had our conversations. I know it affects your shopping, and I know it affects Kate's. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to talk to our guest today. We've been trying to get her on for what months now, almost a
months,
year.
literal
She is a
months.
hot commodity.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. This is a very timely discussion because today is Cyber Monday when we're filming
Mhm.
this. So a lot of the holiday shopping was done either on Friday or is done today. And Cyber Monday is like now a multi-day long thing. But regardless, the last minute slackers or the last minute shoppers or the procrastinators, i.e. me, are gonna need some stuff even after today because there's things that I'm not buying today. It looks okay, but I'm like, so we'll see. But anyway, let's go on ahead and jump into it. So today we have Christina Passmore with us from Christina Inc. Everybody knows her and loves her. Used to be Copy by Christina. She's now launched another new business. So Christina, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for your patience with, like Francois said, it's been months trying to get you on. So with,
Yeah,
with
no worries.
rescheduling and sending emails back and forth, we really appreciate it.
No worries.
Um,
It's just nice to be here. So thanks.
it's so great to have you. And you're calling in from Calgary. So
Right.
has it begun snowing there yet?
It did snow a few weeks back, and
Okay.
ironically, it just hasn't stuck around. I don't know why. This is really late for us. We should have an active winter by now, but I'm not complaining. I don't like the cold, so it's been kind of nice. Yeah.
You're originally from Canada though, right?
Yep, I'm originally from the East, so Ottawa is actually where I grew up. That would be the capital of Canada. And then I moved to the West, in my, I guess, early 20s, really, and kind of planted myself here. So I've been here about 13 years now. I did move back and forth a few times, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, if you want a reprieve from the cold, the South is welcome to have you for a
I feel
visit.
like I should make a visit.
You definitely should. And we've got the biggest airport down here, so maybe not the biggest, but the busiest international. Is that the claim to
Yeah, it
fame?
is. I
Pretty
used
damn
to
Yeah.
busy.
fly in when I was actually actively flying in my flying career. Atlanta's a massive airport. It's kind of crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard people say like, "Oh, it's so well organized and stuff," and I'm like, I disagree. I think Hartsville's a hot mess. Like,
Yeah.
it's all over the place. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating in our weekly weather chat. Why don't you go on ahead and just tell us a little bit about your background? So, and you just mentioned something in your flying career. Were you a flight
Right.
attendant as well?
That's right. Yep. I'm still
Nice.
technically qualified. I still actually hold a position with my airline, but because of COVID, I was furloughed at the peak of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so that's a really great segue to tell you a little bit about myself. I actually started selling on Amazon just as I had turned 40. And I had one product and I did pretty well with that product very quickly. And so the pandemic hit, and I think as Amazon sellers, we all realized the importance of cash flow. And when the pandemic hit, I realized that my income was going to be, cut a little bit,
Mhm.
to say the least. So it was really important for me to find ways to increase my cash flow. And I began writing Amazon listings and selling those listings to Amazon sellers. And from there, I grew a copywriting agency. I took a little bit of a pause from that business, and now I'm back basically copywriting in the Amazon space. So yeah, that's a bit about me. My flying career is still, it's still kind of in the back burner. If I want to go back, I can, but I don't have to make any pressing decision right now. So it's kind of nice.
That is nice, yeah. And
Yeah.
so how long ago was it that you began selling on Amazon? About how many years ago?
I roughly started in 2019.
Okay.
And so I did really well. One thing I will say is when I guess the peak of the pandemic hit, Canada in particular was hit hard with restrictions, like inventory restrictions and things.
Mhm.
And so that really did impact my business. I wasn't yet selling in the US. So I have actually ceased that product, but my business is still around. I'm still sourcing new products, and I will eventually move forward with something else. So you just have to be ready to pivot in Amazon. Expect the unexpected and never give up, really. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah. You've got to be persistent. You've got to have some
you do.
tenacity and
That's
like
right.
hang on for the ride.
That's so
Um,
true.
so you said you just started writing Amazon listings and then selling them to sellers. How did that work out? Did you like find a not great listing and then rewrite it and email it to them and be like, "Hey, I can do this for the rest of them"? How does that work?
So there's a couple points to this actually. When I first started learning about Amazon, obviously I took Freedom Ticket by Helium 10, and that course really kind of helped me learn and move through the process. But in addition to that, I also took a Marketplace Superheroes free course. At the time, it was free. I'm not really sure if it's free now. And so a point that they made in their course content was, if you want to increase your cash flow, there's lots of opportunity in the Amazon space for service providers.
Mhm.
So you could easily reach out to businesses and do Amazon listing optimization and Amazon creation as a way to sell services. So there's that component. And then the last component is that I did have a really great Amazon mentor in the space. And she basically trained me one-on-one, spent a lot of time with me, teaching me kind of the ins and outs and the importance of the listing, keyword research, all of those things. And so it was really with her that my business started to really take off. And then eventually I became independent. So yeah, that's kind of my start.
Awesome. And with writing listings, are the majority of your clients selling on US Canada, on Amazon Canada or on Amazon US?
US is a bigger marketplace, so I'd say that's the majority of my clientele. I leave the international listings like the European marketplace for those experts. Those listings often need translation, and that's not a component of my business. So yeah, usually it's Canada or the US, the most common markets for me.
Yeah, because I was gonna say one of the benefits everybody always says is if you're an Amazon US seller and you're looking to expand your business, Canada is the next easiest step, right? Because
Yes.
everybody for the well, I won't say everybody because I know there's a lot of French Canadians who speak French, but for the most part, everybody speaks English,
Yeah,
and it's just right over the border. You don't have to worry about,
right.
shipping via boat. You don't have to worry about the Suez Canal. I wonder when
Right.
that's going to stop being funny. How long is that going to take?
Yeah.
It's going to be a
But
while.
it's going to be a hot minute.
Right.
But what are some of the differences that people need to keep in mind as far as how they craft their listings when you're selling between the US market and the Canadian market?
hmm That's a good question. So for me, I think the biggest thing that you really do need to look at is for any product is your buyer avatar and your actual audience. You really need to be speaking to a specific avatar and a specific person and solving those pain points. But when you're talking about different markets, a big consideration in the US, Spanish, I think is it a first language or a second language? I'm not sure. It's pretty popular though, right?
It
Yeah, it's a
depends on
strong
where
second,
you
I
are.
think.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
a
yeah.
very strong
So
second.
it's kind of viewed like French is here in Canada. It's a primary, if not a secondary language. So you want to make sure that you're having those languages in your backend search terms. If they come up in your keyword research, it's really important to be putting those in Spanish or in French in the backend search terms so that you can get your product found to those specific customers searching those words, because that does actually happen. So that's a really big consideration. But other than that, I think just really, instead of being so broad with who you're catering your products to, it's really important to focus in on a specific person and solve specific problems with your product. And I wouldn't necessarily, that's marketplace dependent, that's just person and product dependent.
So when you say that, is that, let's say you're launching a new product, should you be doing this avatar and persona before, while you're creating the product itself, or let like if it matches, let's say 18-year-olds, but you can reclassify it for children, which I've seen a few different things also do.
Right.
Like, how do you pick between those avatars, and what are the essential components in an avatar
Right.
itself?
So a really big thing that we talk about in any type of copywriting, let alone Amazon, is that 99% of copywriting is based on research. We actually don't start writing anything until we've done the research. And so you really want to start, you can do your product selection, that's fine, but before you actually start creating a listing, you want to start doing the research on who your buyer avatar is. And so you actually kind of want to craft out who this person is in extreme detail, their age, their demographics, their education, what their pain points in their life are, what their hobbies are, their interests, things like that. And of course, this can evolve over time. So when you're talking about reclassifying a product, before you go and reclassify that product, you create a secondary buyer avatar for that reclassification. But all of that is done prior to writing any content. You really want to spend quite a bit of time with understanding not only your product, but your audience before you write anything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It makes total sense, but I would think that you would kind of like from my perspective as never
Right.
having sold on Amazon or an e-commerce site,
Right.
that especially if I create a new product
Yeah.
or an iteration of a product that already exists that I think is superior, I would
Right.
kind of want to pre-write like a draft of my listing or an outline with like the benefits or like the features, and
Mhm.
then try to cater it to the persona. But you're saying like really start with your audience first.
I'm saying, yeah, start with your audience, pick a specific audience, be a lot more detailed with that research process before you start writing, because how do you know what pain points you're actually solving if you haven't really ironed out the audience? You could be speaking to anybody. But when it comes to Amazon, we know that these are, buyer ready people. They're ready to buy, right? So you want to speak to that individual person. Being very general and broad isn't necessarily speaking to the person that's ready to hit add to cart, right? So yeah.
It's a good point. And if they weren't buyer ready going to Amazon, they're usually persuaded to buy anyway. If they were just searching, it's
With
like,
good copy, yes.
exactly.
Yeah. So what goes into, I guess, the listing itself? Because so let's say we have an avatar. We know they're the ideal age. You give them a name. You know their pain points, and what should you start putting into that listing? Just natural, conversational tone language, or does that also depend on the demographic?
I think that any content that you create where the purpose is to sell products, you really need to start thinking about what we call compelling and persuasive copywriting. And so this really basically uses the known, emotional triggers. Copywriting really focuses on two triggers to get a person to buy, which is emotion and logic. So in your copywriting, you really want to be looking at persuasive statements to persuade your buyer to actually hit add to cart. And there's some standard known kind of lines that you can use, but you always want to kind of think about how you can be different in these statements as well.
So for example, if you're selling a very generic product that everyone else is selling, you're trying to find a USP that would speak to that specific person? Or I guess, how do you differentiate something that is, let's say, a coffee mug with, a Boston graphic on it?
Right.
Like, how do you differentiate that from another coffee mug that just has a Boston graphic on it?
I think that you have to think about what that buyer avatar is looking for in that product, and you have to speak to that in the copywriting very specifically, as opposed to being very general about this general Boston coffee mug. Maybe you would talk about, what a great city Boston is, or like the Boston Marathon, something to really gravitate to that individual. So those are just, some basic examples.
And then would you translate that into the imagery as well? Like, can you take that copyright, and let's say you are talking about the Boston Marathon, would you advise that they also try to get some graphics that support the listing itself?
I think it's a good idea. I think we all know that the graphics are, paramount to an Amazon listing. And so the graphics really also need to highlight the benefits. I think there's a lot of Amazon content that really focuses on features. And in imagery, I think it's also important to highlight benefits. So what would be the benefit of that coffee mug, and try to, I guess, align that imagery to match up with that benefit.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And
Because even when you're selling a product, you're still solving a problem. So it's letting them know.
Yeah. And I mean, we commonly use, in images, I don't create images in my business, but, you see infographics and lifestyle images, which are really trying to highlight the benefits as well as the features. But the focus really in the overall listing is the benefit. What is the customer really getting?
And that leads me to a great question, but I want to, what I think is a great question.
It.
But, well, you had one locked and ready to go. So.
No. Go.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So question then, to kind of get us onto the holiday track of things,
Right.
is how do you, when you're writing your listings for the holiday season, because I would assume at some point in time, like, you're still going to have to outline the same, benefits of your product, because those benefits still exist. And your imagery may want to change a little bit to maybe more gift giving, or if it's, a omni-seasonal item that is currently being used at a pool in your imagery, maybe use it by a fireplace or something different. But who are you targeting then with that? And how do I phrase this question? So if my friends are looking to buy a gift for me that they think would be, solve my pain points, and the benefits would fix my solution, like my problems, but maybe it wouldn't for them, are you speaking to the end user or to the purchaser? Like, how does it work with gift giving? Does that question make any sense?
I don't think it changes too much. You're still speaking to the person who's actually going to be buying the product. And you can add in, I think that's another good point, is that the listing is never really set and done. I think there's a lot of this concept that you just create a listing once and then you don't touch it. There's kind of this fear of change in a listing. But you just update in either the bullet points or the back end search terms, holiday gifts and things like that, to kind of cater to that audience. But the initial audience is still the same. I think that's, is that kind of what you were getting at, if the audience changes?
Yeah, I guess if the audience changes, because there's certain things that, like, I wouldn't be searching for, but I might be looking for Francois.
Right.
So it's like, am I from the seller's perspective, am I still selling to the one purchasing, or would I then need to be speaking to the person who needs the solution? Because they're kind of two different people.
Sorry. So I think in that case, it's always good to look at it in terms of your bullet point structure. And I like to leave around the fourth bullet point. It doesn't really matter which, but I typically leave the fourth bullet point to draw to that gift giving kind of occasion. So whether that's Thanksgiving or Christmas, and then you can specify how that holiday is good. One mention I want to make, though, is that I don't necessarily draw out 10 different holidays in that one bullet. I kind of, again, I'm specific on one holiday, I'm specific on one event, because that's what I'm trying to gear my product towards at that time. And again, you can edit this. You can go back and you can remove those Christmas select keywords and update the bullet. We know that Amazon takes time to update these changes, and you don't want to be making these changes haphazardly. They're kind of a well thought out plan, but you can make changes.
And just one more question. I'm sorry. And because you said that you don't want to be making these haphazardly, and it does take a little while to change when you don't want to list all of the holidays.
Right.
How far in advance would you recommend including that bullet point about the holidays? Because like it's Hanukkah. Hanukkah, I believe, just started, if I'm not mistaken, first night of Hanukkah, which is a month before Christmas, and there's enormous audiences for both. So how far in advance would you recommend these changes are made to the listing?
Personally, I would start a couple months in advance, not like in August for Christmas, obviously, but late October, early November is a good time to get thinking, because people this year also are shopping online a lot earlier. So you want to have had those keywords in there. If you don't panic about it, make the update and kind of let it go until the new year if it's a Christmas specific keyword. But yeah.
Gotcha. Sorry, go ahead, Francois. I cut you off.
Well, I was just going to ask, and I think we've had this conversation or asked this question to a few of our other guests, but where do you think this fear stems from of, not changing your listing, sort of a one and done, hands off sort of thing?
I think I can just speak personally from the Amazon selling perspective, because I'm an Amazon seller, and that is just that I don't want to mess anything up. When I first started, I didn't actually ever change my listing. I thought, okay, it's doing so well. Why would I want to affect the conversion of that listing? But the truth is that improvement is only over time going to make that conversion even better. So I think it's just a little bit of business fear. I also think it's maybe some, different kind of training. I think some old school training in Amazon was kind of like, you don't want to make too many edits or really cautioning change. And I don't disagree with being cautious, but I think making updates is also important in different stages throughout your selling journey. Not necessarily continuous changes. Like if I have a client that comes to me and is like, oh, I updated this one week and then I updated this and I updated this. It's like, you're not really giving the algorithm time to adjust to those changes. So, be wise with your changes, but don't fear it either.
Do you think compliance has any fear in that? Because I know, Amazon will shut you down and they're changing keywords all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another good point. So recently we know that the pesticide claims were just updated. And so that is another really good point. But if you're keeping up to date with all things in Amazon, the Amazon search bar in Seller Central is really your friend, because there's a lot of good information in there that's really up to date. So yeah, you don't want to be making drastic changes to pesticides or FDA claims and making anything, that's not within terms of service or the style guides. You just have to be careful, really. Yeah.
Where do you do some of this research? Because Amazon is one of those beasts where they'll just send you an email and just say, hey, we've temporarily paused your listing until you because you did something wrong. Something's wrong with your listing. We're not going to tell you what keyword you used.
Yeah.
But something's wrong with it.
It can be challenging. That does actually happen. Even as listing creators, like we do know a lot of the known trigger words. Obviously, we know where they're located in Amazon Seller Central, but it could be the smallest thing. And sometimes it's kind of just a back and forth of researching and really analyzing the listing to figure out what happened, how you can correct it, and the right verbiage in that customer support back and forth with Amazon. So yeah, that can be a little bit tricky, unfortunately, but that is part of selling on Amazon. Yeah.
And so because you talked about structure a little bit in regards to, for example, the fourth bullet point that you use right now, at least, is more on the holiday side.
That's right.
What's a good or updated structure, I guess, because it's constantly changing. I remember at one point I saw like all lowercase. At one point I saw less punctuation, more emojis, all caps. What is, I guess, the latest trend when it comes to creating these listings?
So it's actually not a trend. So this is what we call, obviously, terms of service, but we also look at the Amazon style guides for this exact information. And so these are the rules set forth by Amazon. And so as a listing creator, we really want to make sure that we're following these, rules. And so just because one Amazon listing has emoji and it doesn't get flagged, it doesn't get suppressed, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should do that in your listing. So I always encourage clients to review the style guides, which everybody has access to. And then also just look for those key updates. Last summer, there was a key update about the HTML description. Previously we were putting heavy use of HTML in this area. So things like bold, italics, bullet points, numbers. And Amazon came out recently and said that's actually against, I think it was actual terms of service. Now you're only allowed to use line breaks. So really, paying attention to those updates, which you have access to, again, in the search bar of Amazon Seller Central, reviewing the style guides from time to time if you're independently doing your listing. And hopefully, if you're working with a pretty reputable listing creator, they're in tune with these updates as well.
Okay.
And they have access to the style guide and everything through where?
It's in Amazon Seller Central. Everyone has open access. Yeah, it's not actually a secret hidden gem. Just like the pesticide claims, the FDA information, all of that is available to any Amazon seller with an Amazon Seller Central account. There's also some really great content online. There's some really great, relevant blogs that have detailed information that can help sellers piece together what's accurate. But I always suggest cross-referencing that with what is actually in Amazon so that you're compliant.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
And then going back to that structure, is there anything, and just thinking about the psychological and logical way of how I read listings, I'm always going to read it top to bottom.
Yeah.
Right. So I imagine the most important stuff will be at the top, but is there, I guess, something to think about as you're structuring it?
Right. So you're right. The first 3 bullets are pretty much the most critical, along with the images. And so I like to craft the first bullet with a USP, which is your unique selling proposition. And I actually have kind of a formula of how you create a USP. You're looking at, your buyer avatar, your audience, your pain points, and then you're kind of making this statement. And this USP statement, you can actually carry throughout all of your content. So whether it's on Amazon or off Amazon, but this is kind of your one key statement as to how you help people and how your product solves these problems. So that's kind of what I leave the first bullet point for. The second bullet point, I obviously like to highlight, the biggest pain point and how we're solving that problem. And then the third bullet point, I think I might mix it up sometimes. I might here list what is included or any kind of free gift that comes in that package, in that product, sorry. And then, like I said, the fourth bullet I leave for the holidays or some kind of specific gift event. And then the fifth bullet point, sorry, I do leave for some type of a guarantee, but I don't necessarily do these standard, satisfaction guarantee statements. I try to make a little bit unique. And this is also an opportunity where you can really focus on your brand. How is your brand in that statement unique? And what's different about your customer service than someone else's customer service? So that's kind of how I like to structure the bullet points. But of course, everybody will have different ideas and opinions as to how they go about it.
Are sellers limited to 5 bullet points? Is that the max?
I think it is for some, but I actually have seen listings with more bullet points. I think it may be category specific as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that is happening. Yeah.
Gotcha.
One interesting thing that I didn't hear in that is how many keywords you're using or where you're using those different keywords. And that's such a conversation that I think so many people have where they just want to either keyword stuff or they don't want to use the keywords because they want to be conversational. What is, I guess, a good blend or mixture between keywords and these listings?
Like how many you're talking? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, either like how many or, do you plan out all your keywords first and see where they would fit within these 3 bullet points?
Right. So as I said, I start the process with research first, who the buyer avatar is, who the audience is, what the product really is too. I think sometimes people skip over what their product actually is versus what they want it to be. And once I've done that, I do jump into keyword research, and I actually just have spent a lot of time working on my keyword research. I worked with a PPC expert and a keyword expert who's trained me in a new keyword method. So I draw out, it could be sometimes several hundred keywords. It depends on the product and the niche. Other times it could be 100, but these are the most relevant, most highly searched keywords for the listing. And then instead of trying to jam them in every nook and cranny of that listing, I'm really looking at, okay, if I've listed them from 10 being the most relevant all the way down to 1, how can I fit 10 through 8 into the title and first 3 bullet points? But I also want that content to be readable. I really don't want to have content that is confusing because of keywords. So it may mean that I omit a few. Personally, I kind of think it ends up being about, in my opinion, it could be about 20 to 25 top keywords to keep the content readable. And then keeping in mind, you have your description and your backend search term to fit in those other important words that maybe you couldn't fit in the forward-facing listing.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was, are there any kind of creative ways that you can either incorporate more of those keywords or get across more information about your product? So if you are limited to a number of bullet points, like there's certain products that I've looked for on Amazon, and I've had a very specific need for the product, and it hasn't always been, showcased as a solution. And I've actually found whether or not it would fit my need through like the questions and answers or in the reviews.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, great place for keyword research as well. Also just figuring out what your product, how your product is different from your competitors, how you can enhance your product and the copy. You can address those pain points if it's a common theme throughout the questions and answers or review that you're noticing is in your competitor listing. That's a great indicator for you to want to get that in the first few bullet points to say, hey, we're addressing this common pain point and our product's different, our product's, better in a sense. So, yeah.
And for those, for the back-end search terms, I should have asked this when we were kind of actively on it, but since we are talking about using keywords there as well, when you're trying to get them listed either in Spanish or also in French, or just in, if that's not your native language, is Google Translate sufficient for that? Or would you recommend, because we've seen listings that are translated into English, and obviously, I've Google translated some things in Spanish, and French. I was like, that's not what that means. Like that's right. Same thing in French. So is Google Translate enough, or do you recommend that they get a professional?
I would not use Google Translate for a listing. You also you really miss the emotion behind the listing, the persuasiveness. Google Translate can make things really choppy. It can make things hard to really, a sentence structure, a sentence flow can be kind of rearranged and not make a lot of sense. So my friends at Margin Business, they actually do listing optimization and translation. So I always try to refer clients in that direction before going to Google Translate. I really don't think that's a wise idea. But another really good tip is when you're doing your keyword research, oftentimes these keywords actually do show up in French or Spanish because people are actually searching these terms. So that's a great term for you to put into your backend search terms, just exactly as you see it in your keyword research.
Or just start selling products where the origin name is French. Like,
true.
I don't know.
Yeah, that helps too.
Charcuterie board or something. Right? I don't
know. And is there a limit to the back end keyword?
Yeah, so there's 249, but I recently learned from my kind of expert level keyword research was you don't actually want to max out all the way to 249. You want to leave a few characters just before that. Otherwise, Amazon has trouble indexing everything that's in there. So I like to leave it at about 245 tops, around maybe even 240 is kind of where I like to leave the terms. Yeah.
And is that long tail keyword? I guess, is there a way to separate, the exact, broad, and just general keywords? Like, can you
So
group them together?
we're not actually looking at keywords in terms of long tail, short term. In the backend search terms, we're just looking at individual words.
Okay.
Sometimes you will see that listing creators like to keep a phrase intact if it's maybe not repeated throughout the listing, or they're really trying to give that term, like that phrase, sorry, more juice. They'll keep it in phrase form. But otherwise, you're looking at individual words. You're not putting any commas, although I've heard recently that's kind of a debate. But as far as my experience and awareness goes, there's no commas in the back-end search terms, individual keywords. And like I said, you're only going to about 240 roughly characters.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And how does that translate over into the listings when it comes to grammar and, I guess, sentence structure? I know we talked a little bit earlier about the logic and the emotion that goes into it. But when it comes to the sentence structure itself, do you suggest like a simple sentence, or can you like write a more complex sentence with like a semicolon and then it lists out, let's say, this product is perfect for babies, kids under 6, and then a few other, search terms that people typically want to look for?
Right. When it comes to sentence structure, I think we need to remember that most people read. I think it's at a grade 7 level. It's actually not, it's not at a university standard level. So keeping your content very simple to read is great, but you can still do that in a persuasive way. You can still use some big power words in there like transformational or ignite, which are kind of, relatively easy to understand that can help persuade people to take action. So I say keep it a little bit more simple. And yeah, if you want, you can list out who, like for that one gifting bullet point story, if you're talking about something for babies, what kind of genre of babies that would help, or moms with kids, etc. I don't like to list like 25 things. I like to keep it in more of a sentence form. I think just listing things, then you're kind of getting into like just discussing the features of something. And again, we always want to be highlighting content around benefits.
And why is it sometimes during the holidays, and it happens in normal search as well, but it seems like specifically in holiday season, I guess everybody's just trying to make a sale, but that some things show up on a search that really don't make any sense. Like over the weekend, I have like 10 nieces and nephews. And over the weekend, my mom and I were shopping for some of the kids and we're looking for kids Bluey pajamas. Bluey is this kid show about Australian Shepherd family, and it's precious. And we were looking through it, and there's not a lot of stuff for Bluey on Amazon. I don't know if it's because of who owns them, but neither here nor there. But then we kind of got to the bottom, and in our search results were for women's onesies with a butt flap. And I was like, what is happening here? It's like, so why does that happen? And it always seems to be during the holidays that I really see the stuff that doesn't make any sense. Are people just abusing keywords?
In some senses, it's a little bit much. I think the thing is that they're forgetting possibly that, we always want to stay as relevant as possible. But during the holidays, I think there is sellers out there who think, oh, there's more eyeballs, Black Friday, there's more people on these sites. So maybe if I just sneak in something really different. The thing is, though, is that that's actually just going to cause you more clicks than it is buys. And so when we're creating content, we're always looking at how to convert. We don't just we want impressions, but we want impressions for the purpose of converting. So we try to keep these things as extremely relevant as possible with a decent search volume.
Does Amazon have any kind of like user response, like, or user feedback in terms of the relevance of a product from the search that they put in?
I don't know. Are you asking about like the DSP, like the analytics of that, or?
Yeah, because to me, it would make sense if I would be able, because like, okay, you get served a Google ad and you exit it out and it's like, stop seeing this ad, or this is not relevant to me, something like that.
I actually think that's a new feature. I don't want to speak too much about that because I'm not totally versed, but I'm pretty sure that is something fairly new with the analytics.
Oh, well, very cool then. Never mind. I'm going to go back and click, this is not relevant to what I needed.
I had a question also in regards to the listings, actually. When you're writing listings, and let's say it's an accessory for a type of product that's more of a brand name out there, which it seems like there's a lot of, especially for like GoPros, for example. There's a lot of different casings. That's what I was looking up over the weekend also for the Black Friday deals. I guess, Are there any regulations around using brand names, or can you get flagged for any reason?
Yeah, you really don't want to be putting, anything that's trademarked into your listing that will get your listing suppressed. So you have to be very careful with those words. Obviously, like Apple is a very popular product,
Yeah.
but reframing the wording a little bit, like iPhone. I think iPhone, unless that's trademarked. If that's trademarked, maybe not. But cell phone case, those aren't trademark terms. So you just have to be careful with what is trademarked and what isn't. And if you're not sure, then it's always a good idea to ask a listing creator or look it up in Amazon Seller Central.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up because I always see, if you're not just looking up phone case, it needs to fit your specific phone, and we're
Right.
past the days of one phone case for all,
Right.
like
iPhone
my
may be
parents.
trademarked though, so that I would look into before adding that. I'm pretty sure it's trademarked. So you'd have to say something, something pretty similar, but that isn't exactly saying directly iPhone, so that you're not getting your listing suppressed or even possibly, copyright infringement claim or something crazy. Like you just want to play it safe with avoiding those brand names.
Gotcha. God, that seems difficult to do as a tech company though, because like my parents and I all
Yes,
have Samsung S21s, whatever the newest one is, but I have the
right,
normal one, and then my mom has like the plus, and then my dad has the ultra. So like,
right.
because you've got to know which one you have for the case. So
Right.
that's
I
tech
think
might
there's
just be
also
difficult waters.
there may be different approvals as well. If you have approval from that brand to sell that product in
Mm,
writing, that's different. Whereas you're, a private label seller selling a product that meets the same needs basically as an iPhone case. So, yeah.
Hmm.
gotcha. Okay.
And no, that's great. I think this sort of segues into branding, and talking about, because I know a big part of your Instagram also, which I love. I love
Mhm.
to follow your Instagram, and I've been following it for the past almost year now. Um, is how can you make your listings be in line with your branding? And I think branding
Right.
has been a very popular topic, especially for the
Mhm.
past at least 2 years,
Mhm.
where we're moving away from maybe just private label selling anything that you find and just
Mhm.
tossing a label on it, to more of an added value and building a brand around a product line instead of a specific product.
Right.
How much work, or I guess, what sort of thoughts and mindsets should brand owners or listing creators take when they are creating a listing and then thinking about their brand image?
Right. So I think this comes back to kind of the research component of creating listing, and why I like to say that it's like 99% of the process, is that really crafting your brand story and who you are as a brand is not only going to help you in your Amazon listing, it's going to help your website content, it's going to help your website blog, it's really going to help, your business overall. So yeah, I spend quite a bit of time figuring out, who they are as a brand, what they kind of stand for, how they want to help people, and I do try to craft that out in the description area. And so this is a great place as well. If you have a tagline or something unique to your brand that you can add in. If you're, a small startup, it's nice to add those things. If you're family owned, if you're a single mom, whatever your story might be behind your brand, it's okay to share that story. It doesn't necessarily need to be a personal story. It can be a professional brand story. But putting that in there is a little bit more captivating than, just listing out the features again of why your brand is great. Because I think that's kind of a given. Everyone wants their brand to be great. So
Yeah.
yeah, craft out a story. I think that's a better approach.
And you would include that somewhere in your listing.
In the description area, I think is a really great place to carve that out. Yeah. Or if you have A+ content, I've seen some really great listings recently where they actually focused in. It was a single mom, and she, explained in the A+ content how her product and her idea came to fruition, and how she's helping people with her basic invention, I guess, or product, but also used her story as a way to carve that out in the A+ content. And I remember thinking, just from a buyer perspective, like, wow, that's really cool. I'd be more inclined to buy that product because that story is relatable for a lot of people.
Mm. And is this something? that you're able to effectively track, or I guess we talked a little bit earlier about, let's say, not making, one change per week because you're never going to be able to know
Mhm.
what the algorithm is actually picking up. So when you are, let's say, changing the listing and the description, how are you tracking this on the back? Like, what sort of data and analytics are you specifically looking at to see if your listing is doing better? Just conversions?
I think conversion is a good thing to look at, but your impressions, your clicks, all of those kind of key metrics in the back end are important. But like you said, giving it enough time to really see change. Typically, we only notice change when it's bad, but you really want to review change when it's positive as well. So what I like to do with my own product is I actually created a spreadsheet and I kept all of those changes in the spreadsheet so that I could see it in kind of an easy condensed format. Of course, you can go into the back end and you can review those metrics of the listing as well.
Mm.
But
And
having it in a spreadsheet is a little nicer because you can see like, okay, I made this change to bullet point 1 and I noticed I got a lot more questions. Maybe there was a little lack of clarity with that change. You can then say, okay, I made this change on November 18th. It's now like mid-December and I'm still getting a lot of questions about that comment in that bullet. So then it would be time to revisit changing or editing the bullet basically.
mm, and short of making too many changes too quickly, what's probably the number one mistake or misstep that you see Amazon sellers making with their copywriting, either in holiday season or outside of holiday season?
Unfortunately, I really think it comes down to this whole feature focus, this whole focus on what the features are. I really think people are missing the mark, unfortunately, on the benefits. Really trying to think about your product and how it's really solving problems, and then drawing that out in the copy is really important. And I know, there is some conversation in the space that copywriting isn't necessarily as valuable as imagery. But when you think about the combination effect of having a really great image and then a very persuasive, first or second bullet point, that really can make that all the difference between that person clicking away and purchasing elsewhere. So I really think focusing on the benefits and also, really drawing out those pain points. Like why is this customer in pain and how are you trying to solve it? You always want to keep these points of copy in positive manner. You don't want to make it sound like life or death, obviously. But yeah, focusing on the benefits and the pain points that these customers are having is crucial.
Yeah, I agree that it kind of takes two to tango, right? Like there can be some
Yeah.
really great questions answered in the imagery, but then also in the copy. Again, we
That's right. Yeah.
do a
And
lot
if
of
copy gets muddled or confusing within the first couple bullet points, that can really distract your buyer. So that's where if you're not sure where to start with your listing, then keep it simple. Keep it simple and straight to the point. Highlight those benefits. And I think you'll be a little bit more successful than trying to overdo it.
Mm.
Mm,
And can we talk about the differences between a feature and a benefit? Because I think for product owners, sometimes they might see their features as the benefits. Um,
True.
so
True.
can we talk through like one example of maybe, I don't know, a product that you've worked on in the past?
Well, we can take my product as an example. So I actually sold a hot air brush. So it's kind of like the Revlon, the larger hair brushes that you
Hmm.
dry and style your hair with. And so the features of that product were that, there was a large handle, there was 3 different settings for heat. It had bore technology bristles. These are all features of the product. The benefits of the product were that women no longer need multiple styling tools. They just need one tool that offers 3 different results. The benefit is that it's less damaging to the hair. The benefit is also that it's portable. You can take it with you, to the gym or travel, etc. So yeah, features are basically product based. What is on your product that helps the product, I guess, function and also be better. And then the benefits are how does it solve those problems, really?
Okay. And
love that.
that does seem like a very gray area, a hard area, I think, to differentiate, because some might say, hey, that big handle is a benefit. I know it's a feature, but it could be a benefit if people,
Right.
have traditionally smaller handles somewhere else.
True. I think that's where the research component, I know I feel like I keep saying this, but that's where the research really does help, because you spend a lot of time really understanding your product to begin with. A common thing that I notice with various clients is that they actually don't order a sample of their own product. So their product goes straight to market, and they haven't actually scratched and sniffed that product. So I think getting that product home, playing with the buttons of it, using it yourself, and I understand this because when I first got my product home, I was intimidated by it. I didn't know how to use it. And then I started realizing that's a way to differentiate myself. If I give, a prospective buyer really clear instructions on like how to use it and how it functions, that could help them make that purchase decision. So spend a lot of time and really research your own product. Obviously research your competitor product, but really understand what your product is, not what you want it to be. What does your product really offer?
I am forever calling sample testing scratch and sniff.
Scratch and sniff. I
From
thought
now
about
on.
that too.
That's amazing.
That's my term.
If with your permission, I'm going to borrow it henceforth.
And so bringing all of this into the holiday listing creation, when you have, these key features and benefits, is there a difference, or is it just, do you add in certain holiday keywords to make it more of a holiday listing? I guess, what is the difference between like now and buying it in August?
Right. Well, we know that there's more traffic, obviously. I mean, at all times we want there to be a lot of traffic, but you want to just cater those listings at different times of the year. So obviously Christmas is a big holiday upcoming. If you don't have that in your bullet points, you want to make sure that it's in the back end search terms. But in content creation, I also talk a lot about the use of graphics. And I'm a big advocate of Canva. I know that graphic designers, they're very talented, very skilled, but no longer do you need to be, Photoshop expert in order to add these elements to your listing. So Canva is a great option for sellers who are just starting out. You can add a little bit of Christmas flair, or some other kind of particular holiday event that your product speaks to, using Canva. And so you can do that in your images as well as your A+ content. I also tell clients, don't overdo it. You don't need like Christmas lights so that it's looking like National Lampoon's Holiday. Be tasteful and be selective. But yeah, add those elements in there. It makes the listing a little bit more captivating.
Okay. So more the visuals than the actual copy.
No, you can add it, of course, as I said, into the backend search terms or into your bullet points, like specific keywords. This is where you kind of want to go through your keyword research. So for example, like you were mentioning about pajamas, maybe that would be kids' Christmas pajama set. So that's a keyword that you're going to be targeting. So you could add that into your bullet points to then target that keyword.
And so for something like, I don't know, I go to Amazon and I'll type in best gift for uncle for Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, you like Amazon that?
Yeah, I did that. I did that for my mom actually last year, and I found some great options on there. I don't know how they catered to me, but I guess, is that something that you can also add into the listing itself if you don't have A+ content, or would you recommend adding that just into the back end?
No, you can add it into one of the bullet points if you like. If that's a keyword that is, highly relevant and highly searched at that time of year, you can add that in there. Just make sure that it reads well and that it's relevant. And you can add it there, or you can add it into the back end.
Okay. I've honestly never thought to Amazon a search like that. I always Google that, and then I read the like the blogs, like Oprah's Christmas, whatever her thing is.
And then time for that.
I do. I don't, but I take it, but that's, I've never thought to Amazon something like that before. That's funny. Because then I'll see where it's listed like through the blog. True. And then I might go to Amazon for that item
specific.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Amazon is great for that. Is there anything else, I guess, that brands should be doing for holiday creation? And this could be any holiday, right? It could be 4th of July. We're coming up on Christmas, but when this comes out to our listeners also, we'll be coming up on what is this?
Valentine's Day.
Romance Day. Yes.
Mhm.
I was going to say
Romance
Romance Day.
Day?
I was going to say romance. I was going to use keywords to describe Valentine's Day. I forgot the word for it. Valentine's Day. We have a ton of summer, a ton of summer holidays as well. Is this something where you audit these a few months in advance and just see,
Mhm.
hey, is this relevant for this holiday?
Yeah, totally. You don't want to be putting, things that really aren't relevant for that, seasonal event or whatnot. So really pay attention to relevancy. And as I said in the very beginning, your listing isn't just a one and done piece of content. It is evolving over different stages of your selling trajectory. So yeah, you can update those. But I also speak to clients a little bit about the fact that your Amazon listing is a really great basis for your content creation in all channels. You can repurpose some of this content, or you can take blog content and repurpose it for your social channels. Like, you really want to look at content creation in a streamlined approach of multi-channel level. It's not just like one thing. As a brand owner, you don't just have an Amazon listing. You probably have a website, you probably have social media channels. So producing content for those different seasonal events or holidays is also really important across those channels.
And
Absolutely.
is there a way to also list your product for different audiences with it being the same product on Amazon? Let's say if you're targeting, I don't know, someone in their 20s, but you also know that parents that have young kids could use the same product for different purposes. Does Amazon let you do that?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry.
Are you talking about in terms of like how you would target like a Facebook ad or something? You set really specific demographics?
Well, that's for the ad side, but let's say, like, can I create two listings for the same product and say, hey, this is for the people in Boston, and also create, I guess the mug is probably
Oh,
a
like
bad
a
example.
variation listing?
Oh, okay, variations. Yeah, can
Yeah,
they
you
have
can
different
create
content on that listing?
Yep, you can create a variation, for example, for different sizes or colors, or like you said, different city mugs, etc. Yeah, that's possible.
Okay. Well, because I was also thinking, like, if you had a hamper and you wanted to target one listing specifically for, I don't know, college students that use those types of hampers, but then you also use it for like toy storage,
Oh,
which would
I
be
see.
parents. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry. So you can actually highlight that how it is multifunctional in the copy. So in one of the bullet points, you can explain like, yes, this is a laundry hamper, but if you're traveling, it's also great to use for storage or moving, and you can do that quite easily in any of the bullet points.
Okay. Yeah, I
Awesome.
wasn't sure if Amazon
Sorry,
let
I
you
didn't
create
understand
two.
the
It's
question.
It
okay.
was hard to my head was kind of bouncing around there. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to word that. But you can't create two listings with just one being specifically
I
for
wouldn't do that. I
Yeah.
don't think that's wise. No, I would just explain how it's multifunctional and how you can use it for a couple different things. Don't go crazy saying it serves like 10 different purposes. Like I said, keep it very specific. But yeah, it's great to draw out how it's helpful in other ways as well.
And I'm sure you can do that really, really well with imagery as well, like either showing the college student or showing the mom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you so much. We have reached the end of our time, but we do want to give you an opportunity to plug your business and maybe learn a little bit more about what exactly you specialize in, and maybe what size client is going to be the best fit for you.
Right. Great. Okay. Well, we are a Amazon specific copywriting agency. So we help individual Amazon sellers, but we also work with Amazon agencies, and we create Amazon listings. Our focus is also website copy as well as brand blogs. So these are kind of the three areas of content creation that we focus on. And yeah, we help in the individual seller as well as the large agency with what we call bulk orders. So we'll create, listings from anywhere from 25 to 100, kind of in mass quantity. But the idea is that we're keeping the quality at the same standard. We're Amazon sellers. We have the experience. We're keyword research trained. So the listing is still as valuable as you would get if you just purchased one. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
Perfect. And then where can they find your website, follow you on Instagram, just all things Christina? Where can they get there?
Right. So the website is christinainc.com. So you can find us there. There's obviously a contact button, or you can purchase right on the website. But we also have an active social account. So Instagram is Christina Inc. with an underscore at the end of it. And then Facebook is just Christina Inc. You can find us at any of those channels. Send us a DM if you have questions. We often get people watch different forms of some of our older content. Recently, we had someone who watched our Tatiana Jane's YouTube video. They reached out to us with a bunch of questions, and we always tell people we will do our best to answer all of your questions by DM, and if we can't, we will find someone else who can. So we're very open.
Perfect. And for anybody listening to the audio only version, that is Christina Ink, I-N-K, as in the ink of a pen, not incorporated, but it's brilliant because it sounds like both. So I love it. But just as you said, ChristinaInk.com, it's on the screen and it will be reflected in the audio and video descriptions. Christina, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This is just packed full of information. And I hate that the audio comes out so much later than the live stream, but that just means more folks should watch live. But this is awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to chat with you guys. Nice to meet you guys also. And hopefully we're able to provide some value and help some people with their Amazon listing creation.
Absolutely. And we're so thrilled to have you on too. And thank you to everybody who listened live. If you're watching or listening to this and you liked what you heard today, be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, share with your friends, subscribe to the show, ring the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we go live with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Christina Passmore. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.